from like an artistic perspective, that makes it just the tiniest bit boring. And that's not even a critique, like, because good, like, stuff that really grabs you is controversial. And in order to be controversial, you do kind of have to like separate yourself from the thing you're mad at, so I just thought it was interesting that like that process made it just a littlest bit boring. I was like, what does that say about me? Like, that I find like good, healthy reflection. I was like, well, now it's just boring. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Full Spin Club. My name is David Stewart. I'm the host of this online album listening club where we get to know people and music at the same time. We are deep into season 2 now, and I am here with my friend Nolan Kreeger. They are going to talk about Against Me's New Wave. That's the album we're talking about today. And Nolan, would you like to introduce yourself to the people?
Hey, what's up? I'm Nolan Kreeger. I'm a stand-up out of Dayton, Ohio, and I also do improv for the Black Box down there on 3rd Street. Big-time music fan, and I am a lover of dogs.
Wonderful.
Indeed.
It's good that you're a big-time music fan. Sometimes I have people on here where they're like, I'm not that into music. And I was like, that's weird. Because that would be like me saying, I'm not that into air. It's around and I use it all the time, but I'm just not that into it. I don't know.
I remember the people who were like, oh, I don't really listen to music. I'm like, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah.
I listen to music while I'm doing almost everything. It's the backing track to all the other shit I'm up to. Yeah. It's ridiculous. But moving on, before I go on a tangent about people who don't like music randomly.
It's a different podcast.
Yeah, different podcast. David's Angrier podcast, where I just record myself being pissed. No, for those that are joining for the first time, there are 3 main segments to this show. There is On a Pedestal, which is where we talk about the things that we love about this record. There's On a Spit, where we start talking about the lowlights. And then there's On a Turntable, where I turn it to the guest, and we start talking about their life dreams, using the album as a backdrop. So without further ado, are we ready?
Let's go.
Cool. Before we get started, one more time, we're going to plug the like, comment, subscribe things that we should do on YouTube to get this thing to be bigger and more fun and potentially a job. That'd be so sick. So that being said, I do have a special little segment that I don't warn you about as like the the opener. It's called Liner Notes. It is essentially the question why. So you brought this album to the club, and so I would like to ask you why. Like, why this album, why you like it, what made you think of it when you were asked the question, what 3 albums would you want to talk about on this show? So that's what this little segment is for. So
Cool. It's one of those albums that has just stayed in rotation for me since the first time I heard it.
Okay.
And it's got a lot of themes that still inspire me and motivate me. And it's a bop, you know, like, it rose to the charts for a reason. And, I think the reason it was one of the ones that I suggested because I really wanted to explore the themes that are present in the album.
Sure.
And, talk about, what it was that, you know, like why it inspired me and like what it was about what was in the album that I really found that I was excited by and passionate about.
Yeah. And that's like interesting because like not to date anyone on the show, but the album did come out in 2007, and I did find it fascinating that the topics discussed throughout the album are more prevalent today than they were likely back then. Because again, in 2007 I was in 7th grade. I don't want to talk about it. So.
I was in college.
Yeah. So like I could be wrong because I don't think anyone in Ohio when I was in the 7th grade was talking about these things because we were in the 7th grade. But it does feel like the culture has shifted in favor of this type of music as far as like what they're talking about is still relevant. And maybe that's sad. Maybe that's like a bad thing, but it does seem that like, oh, this album carried well, given the 15-year difference in like from when it came out to when it's now.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. So cool. I am happy to hear why you wanted to bring this album. I enjoyed my listen. This was my first time.
Really?
Yeah, this is my first time listening to
Cool.
this album. First time I had heard of this band, but I had not given them a listen. Because I think back then I was more in the Fall Out Boy like offshoot of pop punk, like the Fall Out Boy, My Chemical Romance, like that kind of like less anarchic and more mall pop. So like that was like my path on like the lineage.
And it's interesting because one of the biggest critiques of the album is that it's their pop album.
Fair, and I definitely picked up on that a little bit. And because like when we get to the spit section, I do have my takes. I have my takes.
Okay.
But that being said, are you ready to get into the 3 main segments?
Let's go.
Cool. I should also warn the folks that you should stick around to the end because we do have a fun minigame planned. That is now my new retention play is to keep people watching. I now stick the fun minigame at the end, so stick around.
You're not supposed to tell them that. It's a trick that way. Oh, it's fine,
No, it's I don't know. I think transparency matters. Transparency. Look, I want you to stick around. You could click to the end if you wanted to. I don't care. The analytics.
It's gonna be that good of a minigame.
It's gonna be that good, depending on how you're watching this. Maybe you can, maybe you can't click. Who knows? But that doesn't matter because we're moving on to our first segment, On a Pedestal, where we're going to talk about the things we liked about the record. So since Nolan brought the record to the club, I'm a little more on the offensive, and where like I am going to talk about what I liked because I'm the sharee. And then we can talk so that's how this is gonna go.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, you're gonna just tell me all about my favorite album. It's fine.
You have your chance. You'll have your chance.
Okay.
But all right. I think the first question actually kind of sets the tone. As someone sharing music, there's always the hope that our Venn diagram overlaps. As far as I hope they pick up on something that I want them to pick up on. Yeah. So what was the thing that you were hoping I would pick up on in this record?
I think the biggest thing I wanted to see if you would pick up on it is the sense of I always got a sense of optimism out of this album, and I think maybe it's because the themes that they touch on are more prevalent and more relevant. So there was this sense of optimism of like change is coming, and these things that we've been repressing and being policed for so long are now being we're going to change that. And then and just the I think we're going to get into this later too, but the sense of a calling to action and a calling home to like do you feel like this? Do you feel like me?
Yeah.
Let's get together.
Yeah, and that's fair. I definitely picked up on that on the latter half of that sentence. I did not necessarily pick up on optimism, but I also wasn't looking for it, which is more of a critique of myself than anything else. I'm never looking to be like, yeah, I think they're hopeful because I just assume no one is at this point. But I did pick up on something interesting where I was like, where was it? It was in my head 2 seconds ago. I felt this record was really self-reflective in the point, almost to the point where it got just the tiniest bit boring. Only because they were very careful of including themselves in their critiques of the world, which is a good thing that I think people should do. When they're critiquing the world, you can't do that without also looking inward and being like, how am I participating in this?
Right. It's like being mad at traffic when you're
also in traffic.
You're part of it.
Yeah. But I don't from an artistic perspective, that makes it just the tiniest bit boring, and that's not even a critique. Because good stuff that really grabs you is controversial. And in order to be controversial, you do kind of have to separate yourself from the thing you're mad at. Yeah. So I just thought it was interesting that that process made it just a littlest bit boring. I was like, what does that say about me? That I find good, healthy reflection. I was like, well, now it's just boring.
We crave that. We crave that, like, us versus them. We crave the contrast, the conflict.
Yeah.
And to, like, be like, hey, no, I'm also kind of shitty.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
it's like,
also
oh, well,
it.
now I have to do self-reflection.
Yeah,
and
boo. Like, I do enough of that. I do arguably too much.
Yeah, as long as it comes out into material, it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. See, guys, stand up is just therapy.
Everything is content.
Yeah, now. Look at us. Okay. So I did pick up on the latter half where you're talking about is a call to their people, which and that's like a theme I've talked about on this show like a lot, is that I think that music is because of its loudness, and it's like it is like a call to your folks. I see it in stand up all the time too. Like, like the premise of stand up where it's like, anyone else think about this? Like that kind of thing. That's like, that's all it is like trying to find your people in a sea of not your people. Yeah. And like, hopefully like by the time you start doing bigger rooms, the more of your people are in the room and you're not like rooting for one person to be like, yeah, in the back. I love those moments.
I definitely have jokes that I'm like, this one person is going to get that, and it's going to be so glorious and beautiful in that one moment. I don't care if it kills the set.
Yeah. It'll be fine.
Yeah. But it's like, to kind of like tangent a little bit, like Maria Bamford, she got to a point where like, yeah, she was getting commercial success, but people were coming to the shows who weren't necessarily her people. Right. And so now she's at this point, it's like she'd rather play like a 30-person venue of people who like really want to be there for like her kind of comedy rather than a stadium full of people going like, I don't get, why is she making all these weird noises?
Yeah. It's because at a certain point in your career, you just want to hang out with your folks. Yeah. Like that's it. That's like why we all do this. Yeah. It's to just like, I want to find my people. But all right, cool. So moving on to the second sort of part of this segment, I'm going to tell you my 3 favorite tracks, and I want you to rate my taste out of 10. Okay. And then I want to hear your 3 favorite. Okay. We can discuss. Are you ready?
Let's go.
And mine are in order.
Okay.
So my first one is Americans Abroad.
Okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
I liked that one and I think it just hit me specifically now because like I had been like, I forget the lyric that really popped out to me because I'm the worst. And it's like
there's only like 4, so
right, exactly. Let me open it up.
Yes, we're gonna listen to it.
We're not, but because of copyright. It's like, oh, while I hope I'm not like them, I'm not so sure. Yeah. I think of that all the time. Like where like I'm not like them. I was like, oh my God, I am. And like I came off like I'm just coming off a trip with my girlfriend, and there was like a moment during that trip where I'm like, am I like these people? Or like, am I like this? What's happening? Yeah. And so that was like an interesting thing to me. Like it just hit me the right way at the right time, and that's probably why it's like my favorite. Is because like just that sort of like the thing I just called a little boring is like what caught my attention most. Just like I'm not like them. At least I hope I'm not.
Right. And it was relevant to something that was like currently happening. And like it's a very, I mean, anybody who's been an American abroad, I hope if you have any degree of like self-awareness have been like, ooh, am I being that American?
Oh yeah, I've gone abroad and it is. I'm like, guys, we can't be this way. They already don't like us.
Oh man, my spouse and I, we went to Europe a couple of years ago, and like the whole time, everybody just assumed we were Scottish because we're both ginger. Sure. And we just rode that through all of Europe. Like, yep, sure I am Scottish.
Yep. I'm always rooting for someone to be like Canadian. Like, yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That wasn't it.
I'm about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, my second one is The Ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that one. And then in typical Full Spin fashion, my third favorite is New Wave, the opener. I have found through the last 7 episodes of recording that I am a sucker for openers, especially if the band does openers well, which I think this band did. Yeah. As far as like introduction, like, because like I've been obsessed with my own openers as a comedian. Yeah. I'm like, how am I introducing myself to this group of people so that I set myself up for success like the rest of the album or like the rest of the set in my case. Yeah. And I think New Wave did New Wave did a good job, but Against Me did a better job in writing New Wave. So so like the closer and the opener were the ones that I appreciated about this record, because I think that it would like especially because the closer, The Ocean, kind of spoke truth to power in a way, because like I think this album came out before the lead singer came out as transgender.
Yeah.
And so like it kind of like was prophetic in a way, because like they did rename themselves in this song back when I assume their fan base just thought it was like a passing thought.
Yeah.
Because then later the singer did go on to become transgender and like transition and bring on the new name that she name drops like in this song. And I was like, that's kind of tight. So those are my 3. Go ahead and rate my taste out of 10. Give me.
I gotta say 10 out of 10, man.
Oh,
like,
God.
because like you picked my two of my top 3.
Heck yeah.
And then Americans Abroad, I think because it's at the kind of at the end, it's like on the back half of the album, it can get lost. It's a simple song.
Yeah.
And it's very by the numbers, like punk anthem. But exactly to what you're saying, it's like this was that song came out and they wrote that I think they wrote the song after their first American tour or their first European tour. And so the whole album was a big departure from who they'd been before. It was their first time on a major label. Before that it was Fat Wreck. And then so now they're on this label Sire, yeah, which is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. Can we say these names?
We can.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. It's a subsidiary of Warner's. Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah, and so then they'd gone and done this tour abroad, and they're supposed to be part of like bringing this new American sound, but like, and one of the lines is like, everywhere they go, Coca-Cola's already been there.
Yeah.
Like they weren't really breaking any new ground. And so it's just kind of this self-reflection of like, I'm part of this invasion.
Yeah.
I'm part of this like
weird capitalist machine.
Yeah.
That's just been tilling the fields.
Yeah. So yeah. And then the ocean, oh my gosh. It was actually the label hated it.
Oh.
Yeah. They were like, it's a weird song that has like an outro that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, y'all don't know what you're talking about.
They never do they? They never do.
It's very different from the rest of the album, but I think it's a showcase of what these artists can do, what they're capable of. It could have been, if the band hadn't had such a chaotic personal lives, because like they're all artists that are in different bands and they all have like different things going on. Like one guy quit so he could go focus on his Mexican restaurant.
Nice. Yeah. As one does.
But I think had they stayed together as a unit, as a group, like that song was representative of something that they could have done. And the way it trails off, there is an ocean, like that, and it haunts me. Like that's one of those part. Like I hear that kind of just like it. Once I've listened to an album, like that's the part that sticks in my head for like days and days and days after. But very specifically that moment, the line, "If I could choose, I would have been born a woman. My mother told me I would have been named Laura."
Yeah.
She was terrified because she wrote that and she was like, oh God, I just outed myself, like everybody's gonna know. And she's like showing it to like all the band and being like, can I, like, and they're like, it's fine, nobody's gonna notice. And sure enough, like I remember the first time I heard it, I thought it was beautifully poetic. I thought it was a reflection on femininity within this hyper masculine persona that was being like pushed upon her. And so I think that's what's part of like, I think it was like one of the first times in their discography where like she so directly addressed these hidden desires and this hidden life.
But it's fascinating to me that I was like, I totally understood how it could just be written off. Like, but I understand her fear at the same time. Like, I was like, oh yeah, this, like, cause like you're a poetic person, you have like, all these things. I was like, of course, like it's just musings, and like I could see how she was worried though, because like that is very raw to write down and look at and be like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And then, but like the band being like, it'll pass. Yeah.
Cause it's like, what was it? I had never really researched the album until this. I just like had always loved it. And I was like, she had wanted to cross dress in the video because, and I was just like, wait, you're worried about being outed through a lyric, but you're gonna do that in the video?
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to the vulnerability of that song. You know, that song was a longing for a simpler life, a different life, and wanting to plunge the depths of this inner world. And I think that's what really speaks to me about that song, as you know, my own gender dysphoria aside.
Sure.
We all have this hidden deep world that we have to kind of either put into a little box so society goes like, oh yeah, that's acceptable, or we just have to hide it and pretend like we don't have these desires and these other things. You know, it's like hard people who want to be soft people who want to be hard, like all of that. So
yeah, I get that for sure. And like I think that's like why creativity is so important, is because like a lot of people like that's like how you break out of the box or the compartment that you've compartmentalized all these things, like, and that's like why creativity rules. Like it's like, well, it's also just like one of the more like places that like you can be honest and like but still hide behind certain things, right? So like it's like you can be honest but you can hide behind tune, you know. You're like when you're like stand up is one of the things, like you can be honest but hide behind jokes, and like so like it's more vulnerable, but like there's still a few layers like of like protection or like of deniability, right? Where you're like, it's just a line in a song, like not a big deal, but you're like, but so I thought that was really interesting.
I think it's one of the things that like you get away with it. You can put something right there in plain sight, and it's like, oh, it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that's like cathartic because you got to express yourself, but it's also like, well, now I just have to like double down on the other persona if I don't want people to notice the thing. Yeah.
Complicated world we live in.
So you nailed it. The Ocean, definitely one of my favorites. New Wave, that's I hear optimism in that song, and that's what I was talking about. It's like, you know, I'm looking for the crest of a new wave. One of the biggest critiques from people that were fans of Against Me before this album came out, that the album was them selling out. Was them, you know, they're on a major label, they're climbing the Billboard charts. This is them, you know, doing this thing, and that song is like, no, like. We are the artists. We are the ones who can take control of this mechanism if we all band together. If we all try, and that's what they're talking about. I am looking for the crest of a new wave, you know. And I think that's like for me, it was that like, oh, I don't have to just sit back and be mad. I can do something about the things I'm mad about.
Yeah, that is interesting. Like the entire album being called New Wave and being like. Being a reflection on their newfound success on a major label, I think that's really interesting. Like that they were being very intentional with it, like being like, now that we're louder, it's like now's our time to like use that loudness to our advantage.
100%.
Yeah. That's fair. Yeah, that rocks. Yeah. Well, thank you for playing because this.
I didn't get to do my third.
You didn't do your third. What's your third?
Third. I mean, if you just want to go over it, it's fine.
No.
My third is, was it Born on the FM Waves of the Heart?
Yeah.
It's a long name. I can never remember it all. But it's this beautiful love ballad. And it's kind of like in the middle of the album, and it can kind of get skipped over. But I think it really just so perfectly encapsulates the feeling, the turmoil that happens in new relationship energy. Especially like, so it was when the singer met their future wife, they were on, it was like Warped Tour, and you know, it's talking about these feelings of you know, it's like this is the right person at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And I don't know. For me, it's almost there. I see this dance that happens in it. I feel like I see this sort of pas de deux of the two voices, and Tegan Quinn, Sarah and Tegan, just absolutely smashes it. And the song was written for her.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was really cool, like finding out like that's why it fits so well. It was just like this at the time of writing it had her voice in mind. But yeah, because it's like like talking about like it's like this person that feels so right, but is so like it's like you're trying to deny the feelings. You're just
Sure.
like no, like I'm gonna like this isn't what's for me, and like yeah. So I don't know. I really love that song.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We're gonna have fun in the next segment.
Oh boy. Were we not supposed to have fun before?
Yeah. Well, actually, don't have fun now. We'll have fun later.
Sorry.
And by fun, I mean fun in the sense that conflict makes for good content.
Hey, okay.
So that'll be fun.
All right.
But okay. Well, I love that game. They're rating my taste out of 10 because it's essentially an ego stroke for me every episode. Be like, how well did I do? Like, can someone please praise me? So thank you so much for praising me. Yeah. And that was, it was like really interesting stuff. This album is very interesting, so thank you for bringing it.
Yeah.
And then now I'm going to choose a single track that I think is the most timeless, and do you agree or disagree?
Okay.
I think the one that I felt was most timeless by like my own personal definition of that word is White People for Peace. That is, I think, the most timeless, just because, and this is like a case where it's like unfortunately still timeless because like we're still at war all the time. And like it'll probably remain timeless until we find peace forever. So like I think like by my definition of like something that's not necessarily like time stamped to a certain era in which it came out, and like talks about more like wider themes, that is the song off this album that I think is the most timeless. How do you feel?
I have to agree.
Okay.
I was really hoping to give you some more contrast on this, but
totally.
like, I mean, there's only 10 songs.
It's true. One of the other qualifiers for picking this record was that it was 30 minutes long. Classic punk stuff. If you want to win me over, bring punk albums that are about 30 minutes long. That's how you get on the show.
Hey. But yeah, I think you nailed it on the head though. It's kind of like listening to that song is like watching Last Week Tonight from 2016. It's talking about all the same stuff.
Thing.
It's,
that blows.
Yeah.
Like Trump round 5. Like, John Oliver's gone through it like so many times.
Gosh, that poor man's gone so gray over the past.
He really has.
Yeah.
It's actually funny.
Oh man.
The only person who goes grayer is the actual president during their presidency.
Gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
But
it's terrible. But I think it's also such a classic punk song.
Yeah, it has like the punk ethos in it for sure.
Yeah, the driving guitars, the the sped up bass, like the drums, like it really just hits on all of that. And I think it's almost it goes back to that call to action.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying, it's like, yeah, we can, like, I love the way the chorus was the protest songs in response to military aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shows, this, like, I get so annoyed by groups that think what they're doing is enough, and they pat themselves on the back for their activism, and it's like, you didn't change anything.
Yeah, like putting a black square on your Instagram.
Yeah.
If we want to call out an era that sucked.
We all thought we were doing the right thing, and then we were very wrong.
Yeah,
we were
tough.
Yeah.
Not really doing a whole lot.
Yeah. Or it's like people who like they'll put a Harris Waltz sign out, but then like they don't remember to vote.
Yeah.
Or like
right.
they do, or like, it's like they only vote for the president. They don't vote down ticket.
Oh, you gotta kind of vote down the ticket. Yeah. Especially because it's like actually your own community at that point.
Yeah. And that's where it really matters. Like your vote for the president, it doesn't matter. It's already determined. That's
it's like the NFL script.
Yeah. It's more like pro wrestling.
All right. Which we're kind of watching football become pro wrestling, if you ask me.
Oh God, really?
It's like how it feels.
I
like
don't sport.
They want to make a good, like, I don't either, but I just know that like there are like calls that get made. You're like, what? And so it seems more and more like, and like the running joke online is like the NFL is scripted.
Oh, okay.
Like
gotcha.
pro wrestling.
I mean, when you've got that much money riding on games,
Yeah.
and like, I'm not even talking about completely ignoring gambling.
Oh,
like,
okay.
the amount of
Because like gambling just like quadrupled the amount of money that goes into sports. Like,
yeah, but like merchandising,
right.
the amount of third world countries that are filled with like the people who didn't make it to the playoffs NFL shirt. What, like, that's so gross, and that's not the point of this podcast. Though. We'll come back for
it's like an alternate reality.
Yeah, our angry rant podcast.
Yeah, the one that just happens in my car. But yeah, that the idea of the alternate reality being a third world country where like, hey, in that country, the Bengals did win the Super Bowl that one time. If you ever want to feel like it, you just got to move there.
Like start like a tourism agency, where it's like, hey, go to the place where they think your team won.
Yeah, exactly. Feel happy for a day.
Aww. God, I feel bad for people whose like joy is pinned to whether or not somebody they don't know wins a thing. Like,
I mean, yeah. Although I will say that living in Cincinnati when the Bengals are doing well rocks so hard.
Really?
Yeah, it's genuinely better to live here.
Are people just like in a better mood?
That's the sad part is, yes, they're genuinely in a better mood when
Traffic's
the Bengals are doing well.
better.
Yeah,
like...
traffic's a little better. No one's angry drunk. They're all happy drunk. It's different. It's a very different vibe. I remember because like I had moved back to Cincinnati around the time the Bengals like went to the Super Bowl, and I was like, Cincinnati rules. Like, it's so much better than when I left it.
Pride,
yeah, and then now we're all back to being pissed.
I get that. I was living in Orlando. I had only been there a couple of years when they first got their soccer team, and the people were just so excited to have something to cheer for other than the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
The people were like, I don't know anything about soccer, but go Pride.
Yeah.
Go Lions. I don't even remember what we were.
Soccer.
Soccer.
It's soccer, Greg. All right, so that finishes up our first segment on a pedestal. Are you ready to move on to On a Spit, where we start talking about the lowlights of the record?
Let's go. Bring it.
All right. I'm going to give this album my best schoolyard insult, and I want to hear your defense of it.
Okay.
The way I've been kind of like structuring these schoolyard insults is like after Yo Mama jokes, but instead it's this album so instead of Your Mama so.
Okay.
So the one I have written down here is, this album's so dysphoric, their identity struggles go beyond gender and leaks into their sound.
I can see that.
And I'll double down on this in the next part of this. But because I just noticed that every other song, I was like, this sounds like this song. Like, so I have 3 specific call outs for the next part. But it just felt that like their identity struggles were also band wide. It's like, we don't know who we sound like, so we're gonna sound like other people. And so it just like they stole like a lot of like chords and like chord progressions or like guitar licks, and I was like, this sounds eerily similar to something else that I've like heard. And then I eventually during my lessons started like going to go find it of like who the song sounded like.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I got. How do you feel about that, considering your love for this band?
I mean, all artists steal.
They do.
They do.
That's true.
Gosh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. No, but I think it's easy to say that looking from the vantage point of almost over 15 years of time. I think one of the reasons I personally don't like the Beatles. You know why? Because I think I've heard it before. You know why? Because everybody's copied the Beatles.
Sure.
So
and I have one song that I call out. The song that I like think it sounds like did come later. So like, yeah, and that's like the first one I'll get into.
Okay.
Because I'm like, this one isn't fair, but like,
but I mean, like, punk is kind of a mono genre.
Sure.
And before new wave, their albums were a bit more acoustic. I mean, the band started basically as a solo act, and the singer Laura, she was just pulling people, like people she knew. It's like, hey, come play with me. And So I think that's probably part of why there's this dysphoric was
Yeah.
like they were, you know, like they'd been together and they've been touring, but it's not the same as like when four people come together and become something.
Right. That also kind of explains the simplicity. Like, I know punk is already like simple in like their, you know, the four to the floor drums and like the four chords, you know, it's like fast chords. And like, but that having like pulling in friends to play live shows makes sense for like why they would write simple music, because like it's simple to teach your friend.
Yep.
Like, hey, just do this while I'm doing my thing up there, and like I'll have the complex like poetry, because that's like the thing they can control, versus everyone else. They're like, you know, just do the drum thing. That's us punk people do.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, I think the thing that is the biggest draw for me is Laura Jane Grace's vocals. Back on this album, you know, she's not done, you know, she's still like in the masculine, and her voice has this tone and this quality to it that I think is different enough that it sort of carries the sound.
Yeah.
It's what sets it apart from all of the other punk. So like, that's my defense for that is like it stands out in the way that it needs to. It was, I think, in a way, maybe there was a bit of this because, like, you know, it was the first commercial album, so it was the first album that had to fit a label's expectations. It had to go through the gate. It had to, you know, it had to be processed, and I think maybe in a way that that relatability helped them pull others in. You know, like for me, like I was into like, you know, I was into Offspring, and I was into NoFX, and I was into like that, you know, like the punk scene. Well, anyway,
like NoFX like makes sense that like that lineage, because they then eventually this band got on Fat Records, which is NoFX's like subsidiary.
Yeah. And that was when things were kind of more like acoustic punk, and and so when this album came out and people were like, "Where's reinventing Axl Rose? Like, where is this like acoustic sound that we came to love?" You know, for me, it brought me into a side of punk that I didn't know about before. Like, I hadn't heard folk punk, I hadn't heard acoustic punk, and so like, you know, from Against Me, you know, like I found Ghost Mice, I found Days and Days, I found Apes of the Stone Age, you know, like these other bands that kind of like, oh, okay, cool, there's this other way of doing punk that I haven't heard before, and it was really refreshing.
Yeah. I'm so grateful you're the person on the show mentioning bands that I've never heard of, and like they sound really funny because like I'm usually the one where I'm like, yeah, the band Microwave, and everyone cracks up at me because like all these punk bands have like ridiculous names, like Microwave Pup. Like,
wait, is that a real band?
Yeah.
Is it like, is there an exclamation point at the end
of Pup or Microwave?
The fact that you have to ask, like,
yeah, the answer is neither.
Trick question.
Yeah,
Okay,
trick question.
all
Neither.
Right.
Or like Drug Church. You know, like because like it's funny because like the Laura Jane Grace.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. She sounds like the lead singer of Drug Church a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, what? Broad Church?
Drug Church.
Drug Church.
Yes.
That's in Denver.
And they're like, and they're newish to the scene. So like that's like homework if you feel like listening to someone who has like that kind of like raspy, not like yell as opposed to scream, because like they're yelling.
You tell me the album and I'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that's how this works now. I have said though that like if you bring an album the first time, that you have to get assigned one the second time, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that's how the game works now.
That's fun.
But okay. So that now that we've got into like that, their dysphoric like nature kind of leaked into like how they sound. I'm gonna like the second like prompt for this segment is let's say this album is your crush. I'm gonna try and shatter your rose-colored glasses by pointing out some things I don't like about it, and then like I want you to like rate my flaying out of 10 and tell me if you still love them. Okay. So mine are like I just like kept going.
Oh no!
My first answer to the first prompt is now like this is now I'm like defending my like they sound like this person.
Yeah.
So the opening riff of Born on the FM Waves is the same as Cherry Picking by Potty Mouth. like who is like a female punk band.
Yeah.
Are you aware of Potty Mouth?
No.
I was hoping so, but like, but again, Cherry Picking and Potty Mouth both existed after this band.
Okay.
So like that's the one where I'm like, all right, it's probably
you
on.
Gotta pass.
It's probably on Potty Mouth that it sounds the same.
Yeah. You can only do so much with 4/4.
Yeah, you really only can. But like that sounds. But moving on, the song "Stop!" ! Sounds like Franz Ferdinand's "Take Me Out."
Yeah.
Oh, and I was like, what the hell is this song? It's like,
yeah. Never gonna be able to unhear it.
Oh, yeah.
Which came first, though? Did you look it up?
Sure did. And it's Franz Ferdinand.
All right. Yeah.
I was like,
all right.
Got it.
All right.
And which my only defense against me at this point is like Franz Ferdinand had put that song out maybe a year before this one, and I bet someone at the label was like, well, this one's just topping the charts. Can you do something like this? And then they're like, okay.
That song went on to it's been in a couple of movies, or like no, it was in like a couple of TV shows, but that's not the one that got used for the Rock the Vote shit. I'm trying to. I'm having was it that one or was it White People? All right, well, let's keep moving.
Okay, and then my last one, Piss and Vinegar steals sounds from Coheed and Cambria's "A Favor House Atlantic."
No.
Yes, it's still not like specific, but like the guitar, like the like it sounds a lot like the guitar in "A Favor House Atlantic," like the opening, specifically the opening of "A Favor House Atlantic." And that one definitely also came out before this.
I mean,
this one's a bit of a stretch, but it is immediately what I thought of.
I can't hear it. But I'm sure I'm gonna put the album
put it
on
as
soon as we leave.
Yep.
And you're like, he's
man.
Right.
Yep. So how'd I do shattering the grand illusion?
No, it's there's only so many just because a guy's got the same nose as another guy doesn't mean you've got a type, right?
Ask my girlfriend. I often she brought it up one time. Yeah. I'm the one perpetuating this, because I think it's funny.
Yeah.
But she's like, you remind me of my old boss. It's like that I had a crush on. And I'm like, so now anytime she's like, you're cute, and I'm like, you like your boss? What's your type? Your boss?
Your boss.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're the same person.
I mean, that opens up plenty of fun role play.
No.
No. There's that. No. Maybe Against Me was just role playing that day in the studio.
Yeah, they're like, what if Coheed and Cambria wrote an Against Me song?
I'm here for it. As a huge Coheed and Cambria fan, bring it. I think I'm still gonna love this album.
Sure.
You haven't done enough.
All right. That's actually a good thing because I'm not trying to bring people onto the show and absolutely roast their album to the death. And they're like, well, now I can't like it. That's not my goal here. I'm trying to be playful.
It'd be great content.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Like the thumbnail is them crying, and I'm just like, the title's like, "Weepy Bitch." Can't get over the fact that their band sucks.
Oh. Toughen up, Buttercup.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Come on, Eileen. Oh, I sweat. Sorry. I have that problem where neurodivergents can't do anything but talk and song.
Fair. I'm actually currently working on a bit that's like that.
Oh, God.
But, okay. So now we move on to our last prompt of the segment, which is where we try to vote a song off the island.
Okay.
Where I choose a song that I think is able to go, and the album would stand without it.
Fair enough.
And then we have to either, you can either agree off the bat or we disagree, and then we have to find one where we both agree.
Okay.
So, you're going to hate this. But my song that I voted off the island is Born on the FM Waves of the Heart.
Oh, we're going to fight.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, we're going to fight.
Let me hear it. I want to fight.
Who hurt you?
Well, here's the thing. Should we start with my mom or my dad? No.
Dealer's choice.
No, here's the thing. Mm-hmm. You even said it earlier. It's the one that's often skipped over. And I was like, because it could go.
Yeah. That's
my argument.
Yeah. I never skip it, but I can see how it it doesn't sit strongly in the album. It kind of comes abrupt. The whole album is so political, and it's about art. It's about the music industry. It's about politics. And then all of a sudden we're in love. Yeah, I get it. Like
Love transcends.
Yeah.
Which I'm still like, nah.
But I think it's such a beautiful song, and it's also like not every track needs to have driving, slashing guitar riffs. Like
totally.
At some point you do have to take a water break.
Yeah. And I hear that on albums a lot, and but I still always vote those songs off the island. And I'm like, what if the band, artist, whoever just made B-sides of all these songs that don't fit thematically in the albums that like they want? Like that would rule.
Yeah.
Like Misfits would be such a better place for this, like I would just like thematically speaking, like there are jokes that I love that don't fit in my set.
Yeah.
And I'll shoehorn them in anyway because I want to.
Yeah.
But it makes my set weaker. And that's like my argument about this song is that overall, I think it makes the album just a hair weaker and would be stronger somewhere else.
I would argue that, but for the track Animal.
Okay.
I think Animal introduces nothing new.
Mm-hmm.
It says nothing new.
Sure.
It is kind of like, it feels almost like somebody on the label is like, hey, give us a song about being horny. And they're just kind of like, we don't care. Like, that's not what we're here to talk about. Yeah. And it is. It's like 4 lines talking about like, I'm kind of lusty.
Yeah. They're like sex sells, apparently.
Yeah. But
here it is. Yeah. Ninth track.
It is. Yeah, it's not a sexy song. And there's nothing. It has nothing to do with the rest of the album. Like maybe you could attach it to FM Heart, but like even that, like that song is so strong, and it's like the beautiful harmonies in that song. There's so much that FM Heart has going for it.
Sure.
Where I feel like Animal is just filler. It's just we had to do 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And the engineer that day was having lunch, so we had to make it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Okay. I can see this argument. Yeah. I can see an argument for both, which makes this hard. Like, in favor of keeping your favorite, Born on the FM Waves, I can see why like changing up the vibe is a good thing. Yeah. And like instead of my argument of like, no, keep the vibe. But I do enjoy your argument of like Animals. It does introduce nothing new, and it is
like you already forgot about it.
Exactly. Yeah. I can't think of the thing that you're that you're referencing. Like I can't like think of the tune in my head. That is probably a pretty tough sign that it doesn't need to be there.
Also, non sequitur. I can't believe we haven't talked about Thrash Unreal at all, which was like this song that like was the single that topped the chart. I know that's not where we were at in the podcast, but
I end up always straying away from those songs most of the time. Like just because I'm like, like it was popular, people know it. Like I'd rather shine a light on the thing that it wasn't like crazy popular.
Fair enough.
But also I forget what I like was like about that song about like maybe because like there were themes in other songs where I was just like, this is better. Yeah.
I think Thrash Unreal gives us a insight into what was going to come with like transgender blues. I'm gonna the names are so long. They put whole sentences in
classic
them.
Punk.
Yeah. But even like White Crosses, like kind of it got more into like a human interest rather than it actually told us a story. And there's this like interesting part in the song where there's even like a key change that I think represents like the time jump that happens in the lyrics.
Oh, interesting.
So I think that's part of why it was just like but it was like it's the third track.
Yeah.
And so you have New Wave, Up the Cuts, Thrash Unreal, and then the rest of the album.
Yeah.
And that's kind of
yeah, which is fair for most albums actually.
Yeah.
But okay, I think I'm gonna concede, and I'm gonna say Animal can go.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I'll allow it.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Which brings us to our third and final regularly scheduled segment on a turntable, which is where we now point the camera at you and we start talking about your life and all the things that you do. And like these are questions or prompt or basically for you using the album as a backdrop.
Cool. Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. On this show, I've often said that art is like a beacon to your people. This band seems to fall in line with that. And given what I've read about them, and also Up the Cuts is like a great, like it's literally a call to action of the people. Like, are you like me?
Are you restless like me?
Yeah.
Hell
Are you restless like me?
Hell
So
yeah.
like this band is like very much falls in line with like the beacon of your people. Like, do you feel like in your own creative work, does your own creative work fall in line with that? And then what's your favorite example of using your work to call to like-minded folks?
Yeah, gosh, can I just share like a little like
Please do.
So like it was like 2016. It was after the singer had begun her transition, and I got the chance to see them at Bonnaroo. And it was such an incredible moment, and it was this like calling together of people, because like there was like a full group for the show at like 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning or whatever it was. And it was just this beautiful moment of like, we are all here to still support you. And I think that really inspired in me what I want to do as an artist, which was to be that call call to arms. Like, there's another quote that always stuck with me, Henry Rollins talking about, the punk scene that he was a part of and that era. And it's like, we paved the way, like we're going to hold things back so that the next generation can come forward. It's like, we fought these fights so that you guys can make more change. And so that's something that really inspires me and really informs what I try to do as an artist. This past spring, I was involved in the Cincinnati Fringe Festival, and I got to play the part of an elder trans.
Oh, okay.
And the idea is, it was a show we call. The show was called Gender Fuck, and it was essentially this like magic school bus themed exploration of gender and what it is to identify, and like how like all of the different ins and outs, like trying to be as like entertainment as it was. But what was incredible was people coming up after the show and people who are having their own gender dysphoria issues and their exploration of their own reality, and being like, thank you for saying these things in a way that like I like didn't like I didn't know how to say it. It's like, oh, I brought my mom to see the show, and like now she understands me better, and like that is what I want to do with my art. I want to bring people together, but I also want to help people see things from a way that they might not have explored before. They might not have thought about, and it's something like, as I go forward, I really want to build community through my art. I really just, I think, especially in the comedy scene, like you're kind of on your own. If you don't like, you might get a buddy, you might get like a little clique, but like one thing happens, you're out of that clique. Yeah.
Or even one of you gets successful and like, that's it. Like they're gone. They don't care about you no more. Like I've been in the entertainment industry long enough to like see that go down. And you're like, ugh. Because it is like, especially like with stand-up, it is a very every man for themselves. Because it's just you up there. So like, as much as everyone likes to glorify the idea of having friends, like in comedy, like it's not that great. Because like, what if like the weird jealousy that happens between two people when like one starts getting booked more than the other, like what's happening? And like,
so your friend tells a joke that's like a little too close to your joke.
Like, it's like, I'm fine. But yeah, so okay. I feel similarly, like as far as like wanting to be myself enough to where I find people like me, as opposed to like, that's like kind of like where my head's at with like stand up or anything like that. It's just like, I need to be cool with myself enough to make sure someone else is cool with themselves. And then we can be cool together. Like, so yeah, like this band was very like in my face about that. Like, was just like, felt like it was like a call to your people. Like, cause usually I kind of like make a stretch when I like say this, like the beacon to your people line about bands. But this one was very direct and it was very loud. So I was like, all right, great.
Yeah.
But that's very cool about how you want to like help people feel better about being themselves. That rips.
Not even just like about being better, just being accepting of it.
Sure.
Like I want to stand on a platform of radical acceptance.
Mhm.
It's like, even if you're shitty at heart, like you still like, you have to own that.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I came from a place where bad things were like the norm, and like now I'm in a place where I can choose something else. And you can't make that choice if you don't accept where you came from.
Fair. Yeah, I'm a fan of radical acceptance as well. So yeah, you don't gotta prove anything to me.
Yeah.
I'm already in, gang. All right, so let's move on to the second one. Us creatives often deal with the anger of feeling misunderstood. It's why we gravitate towards music like this, where it comes across as a little more aggressive and confrontational. It feels cathartic to express these things in a more positive way. What are your ways of transmuting feelings of anger, depression, dysphoria of your own in your own creative work?
Writing.
Yeah.
Writing about it, exploring it, finding like what is the root of an emotion. Sometimes I'm just hungry.
Yeah.
But no, it's like everything starts with what do I need people to know? What do I need people to understand? And then having to be like, okay, well, what do they need to understand to be able to understand this?
Sure.
Because this is the transition that I am in right now as far as my writing style goes. Is I came from like I got my biggest critique when I first started doing comedy was like, stop doing TED Talks.
Oh, sure.
And I was just like, let me tell you all about me. And it's like, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know, but if you can make it relatable and then bring in the counterculture idea, the thing that is unexpected. And then, you know, people have that moment of like, oh, I hadn't thought about that way. Now I might see that perspective a little bit better. That's the goal when I start. So that's how I'm like trying to transmute. It's like maybe like I have a couple of jokes. I have a couple of jokes on marriage that definitely started from a place of like, me and my spouse, we were butting heads and like we didn't understand each other on fundamental levels. And as I dealt with that and I wrote jokes about those things, I found healing for that. My favorite thing to do is to present jokes to my therapist. And if she laughs, they're good. I can put them in the set.
That's funny. Yeah, I've done that before too. It's the worst when you bomb for your therapist. It sucks.
She's like, let's
talk
get into that.
Let's dig in. No. Yeah. It was a joke. Yeah, man, I found that the way I'm like gravitating towards like transmuting bad things into better things is in stand-up. I have taken the what is awesome about this inherently shitty thing, like as a premise, because I've seen people do it really well before, where they're like, this is a really terrible thing, and they're like, but what's awesome about this being so terrible? Yeah. And it definitely like changes the entire vibe of like complaining, because like I've like one of my critiques growing up like outside of comedy is that I'm a bit of a complainer, and so then like it was like, okay, what's a way to shift this? And it's like, what's awesome about this like truly horrendous thing, because you can always find it. And like, so that's like how my writing has changed and like recently, as far as like trying to like just like pump up the jams, dude. Pump up the jams. Like, come on, like things are funny.
But like comedians that are just complaining about stuff, like you might have a couple of zingers in there, but for the most part your set's boring.
Yeah, it's boring.
Sorry, guys,
and it's just kind of like a downer, especially if you're complaining about valid things. Like no one, it's like we're here to be distracted from that, not brought back to it. Yeah. And so like it's better if you're like able to like pivot that perspective a little bit.
What comes to mind is the Nikki Glaser bit. I can't remember. It was off of, I think, a more recent Netflix. Was
it from her roast set of Tom Brady? Because she knocked that one out of the park.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't watch it.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm like, I've gotten this like ick towards roasts, which makes no sense because like they're great, they're a
Yeah.
lot of fun, and it's a fun challenge to write for.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like everybody's doing roasts
Mhm.
now, and I don't know, I just kind of I feel like it's getting away from the original spirit.
Yeah. In order
But-
to roast someone, I actually have to like not like them a little bit. Like in order to get to that place. Like I've had people like come up and be like, "Do you want to roast this person?" I'm like, "No, I actually like them." Like I'm not going to be a dick to them.
Yeah.
But like if but they came to me about someone else that I don't like, I'd be like, "Absolutely." And then I'm like, "Well, then I'm just being a dick for no reason."
Well, hopefully, but for that whole $20.
Yeah, that
or
whole $20.
whatever. Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know. We need to like ruin this kid's life.
But like, yeah, like she did it's like a whole bit talking about like it was all of the things that like a woman has to like smile and pretend is okay. And she put it in the context of a gangbang.
Oh,
And
sure.
it's hilarious, but it is just like there's this whole like you're laughing and laughing, but there's that undercurrent, especially as somebody who's experienced
Yeah.
this world and this perspective. It's like, oh God, that is what we have to deal with. And it's brilliant, but it's exactly what you're saying. Like, how do you take this awful thing and put a spin on it? And I think that's one of the most important things we have to do as comedians, because
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, it's just complaining.
Yeah, and like I don't think people put enough like pressure on the spin like in their own head. Like they're like they don't put enough emphasis on it, or when they're writing about it, they're like, no, my complaining is different than someone else's complaining. It's funnier because I'm me. I'm not going to put work into this. Like, all right. And then I'm going to sit there in silence and wait my turn and pray that your 5 minutes is over soon.
It's like, save it for your shitty podcast.
Yeah.
Like,
Not this one, though.
This is
This one's
great.
not shitty.
full support for Full Spin.
Heyo.
Endorse.
All right. Are you ready for the last question of the show?
Okay.
I know. In my opinion, a lot of this kind of music and expression comes down to community. Sure, it's cool to become famous and renowned, but do you think there is more value in creating microcosms where the ripples of the niche topics covered make a larger impact than the lowest common denominator artists make when appealing to the general public? In other words, impact is an interesting metric. What are your thoughts on the different kinds of impact that art can have based on appeal?
I mean, as a punk, like, impact is more important than appeal.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you do as an artist, I mean, what you do as an artist, do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
You're an artist, go off, have fun,
Yeah.
be whatever you want to be. If you want to, I mean, like Weird Al has made such an impact, but has never said anything political,
Mm-hmm.
But like, I don't know. I'm just so tired of music for the sake of record sales.
Sure.
And there's a lot out there right now, and that's all I have to say about it. Like, there is
Yeah.
a lot out there right now, and it's like, how do you tell one artist from the other? Like, so like, and some of these like pop artists, like if you get into the fandom, if you get into the deeper meat of it, like, yeah, like, oh, okay, there is, I mean, like Taylor Swift, amazing example, very popular, but hugely impactful. Is it her work as an artist or as a philanthropist and business owner? That's up for debate.
Yeah.
But I think whenever you gain a platform, you immediately gain the responsibility that comes with that platform.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I think people kind of get mixed up with cancel culture. Is there needs to be freedom to say whatever you want, but we also have responsibility to speak with intention.
Sure.
If we're just throwing words around, like, that's not art.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe like Jackson Pollock's fans would argue with me, but
I don't know, the Jackson Pollock of words kind of sucks, though, like as a premise. Like, arguably, Donald Trump just feels like the Jackson Pollock of words.
I imagine it looks a little bit like a Jackson Pollock inside his head.
Yeah, and he's just like, I'll throw it around. Fuck it. See what sticks. The people like me.
I've gotten this far.
Yeah, exactly. He's just throwing words at the wall. Who cares? But so like the genesis of this question was thinking about how like, and I talked a little bit about this with Wayne during his episode where we talked about Billy Strings. Check that out if you want. And well, because like he is like one of the like larger bookers in the area, and like thinking about how like community matters a little more than like fame. And like same, we even touched on a little bit when talking about voting earlier, like it's like your community votes kind of matter more because they affect you directly. And so like that's like where my head was at when writing this question, was because it seems that like Against Me was very intentional with the way that they make music, because they were focused more on community, which again is like more of a punk ethos, unless they cared less about the larger impact, or I mean not impact, but like the larger like sort of like fame element.
Yeah. They didn't write they didn't write the album for broad appeal. They wrote the album because it said what they wanted to say.
Yeah.
And it spoke to what they wanted to speak to.
Yeah. And I think that like I still like, the more I talk about this and like the more the theme comes up as I like talk about music, is like it's almost better to have like a small lit fan base than it is to have like arenas. You know, because like at a certain point, like in order to get to the arena, you have to like sell yourself short a little bit, because like broad appeal is so difficult to get because it has to be like lowest common denominator music. And like, so like that's like I'd rather have like, you know, like you talked about with Maria Bamford, where it's like the small room of, you know, 30 people who get it, as opposed to like an arena full of people who maybe do or don't, but are mostly using it as Instagram clout that they were there.
Yeah, I don't start me on the clout chasing. It's so annoying because it's like you're meaningless. Your name is on the wind, and if you don't have impact, if you don't have community, your fame can be over like that.
Yeah.
Gosh, sorry, we kind of got away from it, but it got me thinking about like, you know, Stephen Martin talking about like his stand-up rise, and getting to a point where. You can cut that.
That's crazy. I have no idea what's happening.
Uh-oh.
Someone came to my front door.
I like that you were just like.
Yeah, he was like, I think he said Sherrod Brown, which is fair. It is election season.
Did we say the word politics too many times?
Yeah. Did we?
Like, it's okay. We're fine. We already voted.
I was like, well, one, it looked like he was a DoorDasher. And I was like, I have not ordered DoorDash, I can assure you. Anyway, please continue. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. No. It's talking about, so like, Steve Martin talking about like how he in his stand-up career, and like had built a community of fans. He had this like kind of like weird thing that he was doing, and you know, would do the whole Andy Kaufman thing, you know, take the audience out for a walk and stuff like that, and then started doing arena shows and doing these like big huge things, and like it lost the magic.
Yeah,
like, he couldn't do the kind of art he wanted to do anymore, because like how do you sell close-up comedy to you know, the back of the arena? So I think, it all goes down to, it's like, if you don't have your community, what do you even have?
Right. And so that just goes to show people, if you want to make stuff, try and build a community. Almost like the community I'm trying to build here at the Full Spin Club. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like this stuff. It helps so much. I want people to join the club. That's like the whole reason it's a club. So that being said, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of the episode, where we have our fun mini game.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, the fun mini game. So your mini game is interesting in the sense that like it's less of a actual game, and like usually I give like people like choices, but yours is like we're gonna make it up as we go.
Okay.
The idea here is the name Against Me makes me think of conspiracy theories, like of the anxious sort. Okay. Have you heard like that? Like anxiety is just conspiracy theories against yourself.
Oh yeah.
And so the name of the game is Conspiracies. So I want you to tell me your favorite anxious conspiracy theory about yourself. Oh, God. and then we can say why it's not true.
There's so many. I don't know which one to choose from. Okay, well, I'm gonna just go ahead and out myself as a narcissist. My biggest conspiracy theory about myself is that I am this is embarrassing.
Aren't you glad you stayed till the end?
Yeah, I was all excited to do this, and you're like, let's get real. It's like, oh, I probably should be medicated. No, it's fine. No, so it's this idea that like I am the center of some kind of surveillance. And I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's because I'm supposed to do something amazing, and they're trying to either keep me from doing it or support me in doing it. Depends if I'm manic or depressed.
Interesting. So it's like a Truman Show type thing where you're Truman and they're interacting with you, trying to keep you off the path.
Kind of like Truman Show meets like Harry Potter, Star Wars.
Sure.
Like, yeah. I'm a white guy meant to save the universe. It gets biblical sometimes.
Oh, okay.
It takes on many flavors. It's embarrassing.
That makes mine easy. My biggest conspiracy theory against myself is that I'm a bad person and consistently having to like roll the boulder up the hill of like, no, I'm good. Like, it's been particularly incredibly trying recently as I have conversations with my girlfriend where she's like, where she's like, you're so great. Well, no, I don't say that. She is like so kind. And tells me all the good things all the time. And I'm like, you need to hate me 5% more. Because you're just really pressing this weird button I have that I don't believe you. Like, I'm bad, remember?
Like, how did I fooled you so well. I can't believe it. How do I undo this?
Yes, I fooled you, and then you're going to enable me into being a bad person.
Yeah.
It's silly.
Oh, do you want to hear another one?
Oh, I do.
God.
Bonus content.
This gets real into the fantasy world. So I have this theory that I was supposed to die back in 2018.
Okay.
My spouse and I, we were on a road trip. We got into like we didn't get into an accident, but we almost did. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the moment where we like slipped timelines.
Ooh, yep. I've heard of this theory before.
Right?
Or like split timeline. Like any near death experience you have is like a timeline split.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So I'm crazy, but like there's others.
Yeah. There's others.
And so, but like things have been like, but that slipped us into the darkest timeline. So like Donald Trump is my fault.
Oh, that's Harambe's fault.
Oh, it's Harambe's fault.
Yeah. Have you ever heard that? That like somehow everyone like agrees that like 2016 when Harambe died is the reason everything sucks now.
So Harambe's still taking one for the team.
Yeah.
Dicks out.
Yeah. Harambe got shot and now everything sucks.
I like the one where it's, because it was around the time that they said Pluto wasn't a planet anymore. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're just going to diss the, like, god of chaos and discord? Good luck with that. Yeah. So, we'll save that for a psychology podcast.
Yeah. That one's also in my car. All right. Well, Nolan, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for bringing this album. I genuinely enjoyed it. Do you have anything you'd like to plug for the people? This is coming out probably like mid to late December. So if you have anything coming in the new year, that'd be helpful.
Actually, yes. You can catch me and my fellow amazing improvisers. We'll be doing a sketch show at January... and at the Black Box Improv in downtown Dayton. So yeah, come check us out.
Heck yeah. And if you guys haven't seen it already, Nolan was on our wonderful People vs. Taylor Swift show at Commonwealth Sanctuary. That is looking to be a monthly show. And so I want you guys to get online and get some tickets for the next one. The People versus is a series that I have not chosen the next person yet. So
not at this time.
Not at this time. But it's the People versus. It's super fun. It's a court-themed drama about music. That's the best. And it's going to be super fun. The audience gets to be jury, so it's going to be great.
I remembered another thing to plug.
Please, plug again.
I also am part of the Comics and Dragons podcast. Me, Chris Karofsky, Brent Browser, and whatever comedians that we have playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's a lot of fun. It's very silly, so check it out.
Heck yeah.
On YouTube.
Tabletop games. Yep. People love it. Are you ready to say goodbye?
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We will catch you in the next one. Peace out.